Welcome to Saturday Morning Conversations. The following is a paid political announcement for Tye Menser, Democrat, a candidate for Thurston County Commission, District 3.
My guest on Conversation this morning is Tye Menser, better known as Tye. That's what all the campaign signs say. He's running for Thurston County Commissioner. Welcome to Conversation, Tye.
Thanks. Good morning, Dick.
So you don't use Menser very often, but that's going to be on the ballot, right, when people see it?
Absolutely. Tye Menser.
So you're a first-time candidate. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm an attorney, criminal law and family law focus. My wife's a kindergarten teacher. I'm a proud father of a 13-year-old son and an 11-year-old daughter. Studied government at Harvard. I studied law at UC Berkeley. I've had a 21-year legal career, criminal defense focus, and I was a commissioner on Thurston County's Water Conservancy Board.
Those are pretty impressive credentials, especially when you bring up things like Harvard. Wow, that's like big name school.
It is.
And what brought you to the Northwest?
So I was living in Alaska, northern Alaska, as a public defender up there, and my wife and I just decided that we really wanted to plant roots in a community. We really liked Fairbanks, Alaska, but there's a lot of things you give up when you live in Alaska. We really wanted to find somewhere a little closer to the rest of the country, and so we looked for a community that was similar to Fairbanks, and Olympia just really fit perfect for us, so we came here a little over a decade ago.
I love Fairbanks too, but it's a little bit warmer down here. The winters are a little more tolerable, maybe?
That's absolutely true. Fairbanks can be extreme.
Well, Tye, why are you running for a seat on the Thurston County Commission?
I'd like to help Thurston County prepare for its future. I've been concerned about a variety of issues over the last few years in the county commission. We've got a commission that's been deficit spending for 2.5 years, spending down a healthy budget reserve. We've got issues with clean water and environmental issues. We've got homeless numbers spiking in the community, especially among children and families with children. And I'm also hoping to bring some balance back to our county commission. We've kind of swung from one political extreme to the other, and I think that right now our county commission are former military and law enforcement officers. It's a great background for public service, but I think the county commission could use folks from different professional backgrounds, different skill sets, and I'm hoping I can bring that.
Well, you talk a lot about responsible spending. Why are you so concerned with the county budget?
Well, as I say, there's been 2.5 years now of deficit spending. Going into 2016, the county's budget was in a very healthy position. We were spending less than we were bringing in revenue, and we had a healthy 2-month budget reserve. And county government's always squeezed financially. There's a cost of government rise 3 to 5% a year, and county revenues don't always keep pace, and that's been the case lately. And as a consequence, the commissioners, rather than making spending cuts or trying to find efficiencies, have been spending through the budget reserve, and now we're on the brink of financial solvency right now.
I've heard you talk a lot about restorative justice. First of all, what does that mean? And you say it could save the county money.
Right. Restorative justice, obviously I care a lot about it because I'm a criminal defense attorney and former public defender, but it's also a timely thing to be concerned about because the biggest area of the county's spending is the law and justice system. It's 75% of the general fund, and that's the discretionary portion of the county's budget. So if we're going to solve our budget woes, we need to look at where we're spending our money and how we can do more with less, and that's where restorative justice comes in. What restorative justice does is it looks at policies that really focus on the roots of what we call criminal recidivism, people that kind of cycle through the system. We have so many mental health and substance abuse issues. For example, the stats I've heard are 45% of the folks in our jail have a mental health diagnosis, 75 to 80% are struggling with a substance abuse issue. And when you have those kind of problems with your low-level criminal defenders and you don't connect them to treatment services, you end up spending a lot of money on incarceration and not getting a good result. So I think it makes the community safer and healthier. It also can help us with our budget issues.
By saying what you just said, you've kind of touched on the homeless issue, and that is probably one of the biggest issues of the day. If you're elected, what would you do differently than your incumbent when it comes to homeless?
We have a 5-year homeless plan that the county released, and it calls for regional coordination. We've got a lot of different sources of money. We have no strategic vision over that, and I think that one of the things that's called for right now by a lot of our local elected leaders and our county's 5-year homeless plan is regional coordination, unifying the jurisdictions on a strategic vision for how we're going to go forward here. Olympia is doing a lot of work in isolation. The county's doing things that sometimes in line with what Olympia is doing, sometimes at cross purposes. For example, I have the support of all three mayors of Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater. I know in 2 of those cases, it's specifically connected to the fact that they don't feel the county is working with them as a good partner on coordination of homelessness policy. So I want to repair the relationships with our cities, get us all working together, moving the same direction. That's both in terms of emergency services, dealing with the children that we have in our school systems that have unstable housing. It's also working on long-term policies like getting more affordable housing units built and, dealing with the long-term supply issues that we have in our housing market.
Now, another hot topic, particularly in South County, is the havoc the Mazama pocket gopher is causing landowners who want to develop their property. What would you do to help those landowners?
This has been a big issue in county government for a period of years, and it's an issue that we really need better leadership on. The answer to the pocket gopher conundrum, so to speak, is what's called a Habitat Conservation Plan, or an HCP. This is a 30-year plan that the federal government offers us to basically the county to deal with these issues in the aggregate for all of our property owners so that they don't individually have to negotiate with the federal government, specifically U.S. Fish and Wildlife, to be able to get a permit to develop on their land if they have endangered species habitat. And in Thurston County, we have a lot. We have several species, and the pocket gopher can cover a lot of different types of area in our county, so it's been a real problem. So there is a draft that the county commissioners finally came up with. First of all 3 county commissioners campaigned saying we don't need an HCP. I think they weren't being honest, or they didn't understand the issue, probably is more likely, because it's pretty complicated. And they finally came around, as the Olympian put it, they came to their senses. They finally came around that we need an HCP. It's really the only tool that's going to solve this problem long term. And they finally put together a draft and submitted it in July. But it's a draft that basically, it's an overreach on their part. It's about 10% of the acreage that was originally called for. They want to reduce the cost of the plan, and I understand that. But if the plan is not based on sound science and is not going to be approved, it's not a realistic plan, we're just going to have further delay. So my fear is that we have a plan that's been submitted that's not going to be approved. It's a whole year of approval process through the federal government. We need to get a realistic plan up there so we get through this year review process and get this problem solved. And it can be solved forever. People have questioned me, what do you mean solved forever? What I mean is that if you have a realistic plan on this pocket gopher issue, the set-asides that are required by the plan stabilize the species, and it can be delisted. And it's listed by both the state and federal governments, but we can move toward a delisting of that species if we can put together an HCP that works for the county.
In case you just tuned in, my guest is Tye Menser. You see his signs all over. It says Tye for County Commission. Tye is a candidate for Thurston County Commissioner. And Tye, we have a little bit of time left. Is there anything you'd like to, talk about before I just make up some more questions for you? There is one right here. I understand that besides being a lawyer, you have a musical career. You want to sing for us?
And not this morning. Well, a career is probably an exaggeration, but I have led a bluegrass band in this community for the last decade. I'm a banjo player and a singer and a songwriter, and my band's called the Ole Mountain Boys, and we've played at the Thurston County Fair and all sorts of community events, and we started in March of 2008, so we just celebrated our 10th anniversary. We've been kind of on hold while this campaign's taken over my life this year, but hopefully, even if I'm elected commissioner, we'll still be able to play bluegrass in the community and keep that going, because it's been a really good outlet for the stress of a legal career, and I've really enjoyed doing that.
I assume you've done a lot of doorbelling.
Have done a lot of doorbelling, yep.
What do you learn from that? Anything popping out that you learned from doorbelling?
I learned that people don't know a lot about what the county commission does, which running against an incumbent, I guess, has been a good thing. I also learned that the housing and homeless issue is probably the number one issue in the community, because it's the thing that people ask me the most about. What are you going to do to help downtown Olympia? What are you going to do to help the folks that are unsheltered? And on both sides of the issue, some folks are really concerned about whether, we may attract folks from other parts of the region or the country if we do too much to help folks. So there's concerns on all sides of this issue, but it's clearly been the number one issue that people are most likely to question me about. So it's an issue that I've just tried to immerse myself in and learn as much as I can so that I'm ready to go on day one if I'm elected.
As a candidate for an entire county, you found out Thurston County is maybe a little bigger than you thought it was. I mean, there is a lot of territory to cover. What do you like best about Thurston County? What part of the county just makes you go ooh and ah?
Well, I want to tell a story about that, but probably my favorite part is kind of the prairie land that's near Rochester and Little Rock in there, and Gates Road, and it's just absolutely beautiful, and it just really speaks to me. I mean, I've lived in rural communities quite a bit. Even in Fairbanks, Alaska, I lived way out of town in the middle of nowhere on a couple of acres. So having that kind of open space right here in Thurston County has been amazing. One of the stories, just when I was starting the campaign, I was watching the Ken Burns Civil War documentary, and he talked about Shelby Foote, the narrator, talked about how the soldiers in the Civil War, when they got back to their communities after the war, they really felt like what it meant to be an American. They experienced what a country meant. And it's kind of like that way in a campaign. I mean, I'm learning so much about Thurston County, the different communities, the different interest groups, the different pockets and areas of activity in the county, that I feel like so much more connected to my county and the people here. So win or lose, it's been a really rewarding experience.
That's good to hear you say that, because I was a candidate once too, and there's nothing like getting out there and meeting people face to face and finding out there are folks out there, people leading everyday lives.
Absolutely, and hearing what they care about. And it's often a lot different than what people I'm surrounded by care about. So it's a great learning experience.
As you walked into the radio station, what was the message you wanted to get out to the listeners?
I just wanted the people to learn a little bit more about me. I want them to know that I'm committed to Thurston County and the issues that we face. I'm a caring person, I'm a hard worker, I'm a quick study, and I intend to work every day on their behalf as commissioner. They'll be in good hands if they choose to elect me as commissioner this year.
Any final words, or is that it?
That's it, Dick. I really appreciate your time.
Well, Tye Menser, thanks for being a guest on Conversation this morning.
You bet. Thank you.
The proceeding was paid for by Tye for Thurston. If your business, candidate, or event would like more information about purchasing airtime on Saturday Morning Conversations with Dick Pust, contact Mix 96.1 local sales manager Carrie Murphy at 360-943-9937 during regular business hours, or ckxxo.com.